Welcome to day 8 of the Spanish Nerd course. If you take a quick glance across everything that you're going to study today, you'll notice it's all familiar. You already know what to do. But just because we're still in the beginning stages of this course, I'm going to go ahead and make a video tutorial for today that can be helpful, just in case, okay? Because I know it's still all very new, and learning a language, it takes so much from your brain, especially if it's only your second language. If you're only learning, or in other words, if you're only learning a new language for the first time here with Spanish, it's very, very taxing on the brain. So I understand completely. I've been in your shoes. So here we are, day 8. Let's take a look at it. We're going to walk through this together, okay? What's the first thing we notice? The pink words that don't mean anything to us. No, they mean something, but we don't need to memorize them, okay? So we're still in the present. But we're going to be looking at irregular verbs today that correspond to tú. Let's go ahead and just read this together. What are we looking at for today? Well, it says, today is a continuation of the verb lesson from yesterday. You may want to do a brief review of that day's lesson before starting this one. We're still practicing the same verbal concept with the same pronoun tú. However, today we'll practice with our 15 key irregular verbs. So we're doing the same concept as we were doing in the last day, day 7, with our 3 best friends, except for now we're just memorizing patterns for like 15 key irregular verbs, all right? Now, just as a reminder, there's 2 main differences between the 15 key irregular verbs and our 3 best friends, our 3 most common regular verbs. One is they're irregular. I think you already know that, so it's not just a matter of changing the ending. Sometimes in the middle there's little changes, little irregularities, but they're not too crazy, but they're there. The other difference is that these ones, they're not as much serving as patterns for you to look at anything else. So the 3 regular ones, comer, hablar, vivir, those ones are actual patterns. You're using them as an example for every other regular Spanish verb, whether it ends in AR, ER, IR. If it's regular, it's going to follow one of those every single time exactly. These ones are not so much patterns for other words. These ones are just giving you a core base of verbs in their different conjugated forms that you can just get out there and go use. So let's look at the example. The example says, are you okay? ¿Estás bien? What do we notice about the example? Okay, it's present. It's present tense. Are you? You're not saying were you okay when that happened. You're not saying will you be okay. No, it's not past tense. It's not future. It's not hypothetical. It's are you right now? Are you okay? Now in Spanish, it's estás bien. But for the moment, we're focused more on English, all right? So what does this mean for us? It's the same as it was in day 7 for our regular verbs. Present tense, and we're still using the same pronoun tú. The only difference here is we're using our 15 key irregular verbs. So we have, let's look at the first one. Estar, you already know that means to be, temporary, like in temporary state. The pattern for that to memorize is tú estás. Tú estás. You should know what that means. Notice there's no translation there. How are you going to know what it means? Well, building blocks. This is a building block method. This method is to push you to actually be internalizing and memorizing things each time so you can build on that for the next thing. So you know what tú means, right? It means you. You know what estar means. It means to be. So you have to just put those together and you're knowing, all right, so this logically has to mean you to be. Oh, but we don't say it like that. So it'd be you are. Present tense, you are. Same thing with these other ones. Let's go down to, let's look at decir, second from the last. I'm just kind of picking one, okay? So the second to the last one is decir. Now you look at that and you say, I already know what decir means. It means to say or to tell. And then if we go over to the pattern to memorize for decir here, it starts off with tú. I know that means you. And then dices, I haven't quite seen that before, but based on what I've already been explained what we're doing, we're in present tense. And so if you, to say in present tense, would be you say, you say. So you have to logically work out to yourself that this means you say. So you would use this in a sentence. You say that every time, Zach. Something like that. Just an example sentence. But you can go ahead and make your practice sentence. The idea is memorizing this so you can get out there and use it. So this is a building block method. I would say that if you haven't really memorized the previous lessons up until now, this part is going to be a little bit difficult for you because there's no translation. So if you have to go back, that's okay. But if you're having to go back, I encourage you to use memory aids. Use memory aids however you can. All right, whatever works best for you, but be creative, make it visual, even if it's just in your mind. You could even draw it out, whatever. Create memory aids. And it doesn't have to be just about vocabulary words. It could be a memory aid of how the ending is. You just have to figure out some kind of aid that works for you to memorize it, okay? Let's go to the next page. We're still in the same lesson. You recognize this. This is our ing. This is going to be a pretty big part of the first half of this book, more or less half of this book. Let's look at the example. You're talking, you're eating, you're living. Again, those examples are not to memorize. It's only to orientate you so you know what you're getting into with this lesson. Remember I said to you before, all of these words inside this bubble, they never change. It's so beautiful. They're never going to change. So these ones, you can just memorize them and they're going to stay the same. Let's look at the first one. Hablando, which means talking. That's never going to change. Never, ever, 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 ever will that change. Hablando will always be talking. Talking will always be hablando. Now, the word that comes before it will change, just like in English. In English, talking, it doesn't change. You can say, I am talking, I was talking, I will be talking, I would be talking. But talking is always staying the same. In English, same thing as Spanish. Hablando will always be talking. The only thing that changes is the blank that's in front of it, okay? In this case, the bubble is pointing to the word that you're going to use to fill here. It's estás. There's no translation for that. Well, how do you know what that is? Well, you just learned it in our last one, just in the last page there. That was the first thing on the last page in the table. Estar is, tú estás is the pattern that you were learning there, okay? So, estás hablando. If you put estás there in that first blank, estás hablando, you know that means you are talking. You're using building blocks. You've already learned it. I don't even have to translate for you because you've learned it. Next one, you put estás in the next blank. Estás comiendo. What does that mean? Building blocks, you already know. You might have to pause and think about it. Estás comiendo, okay? Estás means you are. Comiendo means eating. You are eating. So same thing with all these throughout here. The only ones that you really don't need to pay much attention to, again, just as a reminder, are the bottom three that are in gray. They're not as common. They're just there because we're still sticking with our 15 key irregular verbs, and our three best friends in this bubble. We don't want to throw them away. So they're still tagged along there for this particular ing, but yeah, not too important. Let's go to the next page. Last thing we have here. You know what's going on. It's a vocabulary table. You just memorize these 5 words. I encourage you to use memory aids. And we have these possession type of words. I'm intentionally not using the most, proper linguistic terminology because it's boring to most people, all right? So to say something like possessive pronoun, okay, they're possessive words, like whenever you possess something. So we see in English what they are. Your, yours, you'd use it as like, that's your car, or is that your car? And then we have hours, right? And the last two are a little bit different. They're just common words. We have the word other and the word each. These are important words, very common in Spanish. So if you have any questions in the meantime, let me know. Until the next day, day 9, I don't want you to jump to day 9. What I want you to do in the meantime is stop and immerse your brain.